Good afternoon. Welcome to Match Day. I'm Vince, and with us today we have Thiago Pinto from Bethel University. Thiago, let's just check your audio. Are you there? Can you hear us?
Yeah, Vince, thanks for having me. Can you hear me?
Great. Yes, perfect.
Awesome.
And then we also have Zach Ganzberg, and yes, he is related. Believe it or not. So, Zach, can we hear you? Just check.
I hope so. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you just fine.
Good.
Well, thank you. Good. So thank you both for coming on and appreciate it. Last minute, I know we had a person drop out and said, well, you know what, let's get you two back on and maybe finish what we started. So for all those that are in the chat box, please feel free to ask questions. It's just going to be me instead of my boss, Ian Barker, on. But just want to say again, thank you two both for coming on. So let's kind of pick up where we left off a little bit. So Thiago, you both were sharing about NAI experiences and kind of the NAI level and all that. We didn't quite get into your relationship, right? So I think it'd be really good if we started there. And so I'll start with you, Thiago. So you didn't recruit Zach, but he ended up playing for you.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Maybe just talk about that a little bit, and then we'll progress.
Yeah, for sure. So when I took over as the head coach in 2009, in the spring, Zach was a sophomore going into his junior year, and had a kind of the privilege because I was not too far out. I was the coach at a Holy Cross the season before, so I had a chance to watch him play 2008, and didn't see much of him his freshman year, and I knew the team had a struggle with the culture there. But 2008, I got to see quite a bit of him and saw a lot of potential qualities there. Then 2009 had a chance to take over the program in the spring, and had a chance to work with him for 2 seasons, and we got off to a great start that spring. Had a coach, Matt Young, who's had a strength and conditioning coach at Pepperdine, came on with me, and we did a lot of pushed the guys hard that spring, but got a chance to connect with the group, and Zach was a key player that I was quick to identify, and we we're very fortunate, very blessed to build a good relationship, and I felt like he was a key part of our success my first 2 years, and just creating something special with the team that we had, with guys from all over, and so he became a leader for us the 2009 and 2010 season.
Yeah, so thank you. So I'm going to switch it over to Zach. By the way, in the background, for all those that are listening, that's my granddaughter. So, yeah, don't say anything bad about her. But
so she gets a pass if she screams.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Zach, let's talk about just playing for Thiago. You're recruited by one coach. Unfortunately, he left. He moved on, and then Thiago came right in. And I remember you telling me right away that you were really happy about it. And I asked why, and he said because he communicates better and where you stand. But what else about playing for Thiago?
I think what makes Thiago special as a coach is just how relational he is, and he was like that right when he took over. I mean, immediately we all felt at ease. I think that's a special quality in a coach. Like, you could talk about the tactical knowledge and systems and all that sort of thing, but he made the players feel at ease. We had a really talented team, and I think that's what was required. Somebody to come in and just make us feel confident and like we could do something special. And I think it started with the relationships that he had with his players, but then also the relationships he had with his staff. Everything felt comfortable, and that allowed us to be at our best. And so I think that's what made Thiago really special when he took over.
Yeah, so it looks like, it sounded like, Thiago talked about culture, and, Zach just mentioned culture as well. So, feeling comfortable, right? And there's my granddaughter. So, yes,
yeah.
There's, yep, having a hair day. But no, again, by the way, this is reality, right? For a lot of people, right? Juggling,
right.
Being on Zoom calls and being a parent. So obviously, Zach's senior season, he had a good season, but the team, most importantly, the team had a great season. Zach had a great season as well. But So talk to me a little bit about that senior, and maybe just, so you're playing Rio Grande, which I was at, right? That was Zach's last college game. And I'm sure anytime a senior leaves your program, you just feel like, oh, it's so sad. But anything different with Zach, or pretty much the same feeling?
Well, that was my second class of seniors that I graduated, that Zach's senior year. But I think that every year is different, yet the same. You build relationships. But I think, in retrospect, looking back now, it's obviously feels different because it's not with every senior that you get to progress in different cycles and phases of life. And so the last 15, 12 years, being at the collegiate level, I've been able to work with a few, and Zach being one of them, where he kind of progressed to, he came on as an assistant coach, and seeing him grow, professional life as a husband and as a leader, now doing probably better than I am with his team, so it's it's special.
Yeah, he just set up next fall's match, but but let's talk about, so Zach, you played for him, and then you went back and ended up coaching with him. So how did that relationship change, or how did it change, if it did?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was something that neither of us really expected to happen. We had, I at least had other aspirations at the time. After I graduated, I didn't expect to coach, but I think that this is a lesson for young, college players now that might aspire to coach, but that don't necessarily know their career path. Like, you got to make sure you have good relationships with your coach. You got to make sure that you're above reproach, that if opportunity comes later in life, that you have that sort of relationship where other things I didn't want to pursue anymore. I wanted to get back into coaching, and I had a good enough relationship where Thiago gave me a chance. And so I think that I've seen that now materialize with some of the players that I've had. And it's like the ones that we've had really strong relationships that I trust, that have been coachable. Those are the ones that I really want to look to maybe come and join my staff one day. And I think that young players can hear that, and then other coaches might be able to relate to that as well. But it was really unexpected that I ended up coaching. I had other pursuits, but when I got back into it, I think some of it was the environment where I was at, being at my alma mater. But then a huge piece of it was coaching under Thiago is what really motivated me. Helped me find more of a vocational sense in coaching, instead of just doing it on the side or doing it just to stay involved in the game. Like, I found more of a vocational calling, when I worked with Thiago, because I could see the way that he interacted with his players. And I already knew the sort of difference he was making for his players, because I was one of them. But to be on the other side of it and to kind of, get to know him personally, it had a huge impact on my life.
Yeah, no. And obviously, because you continued in coaching, and so what role did Thiago give you, like when you were the assistant coach? I mean, what role did he trust you with?
I think, it'd be hard to really pinpoint exactly a role that I had, with the team. But I think, because we worked so well together and there's such a natural chemistry, like, it's hard to really explain, but ego never really got in the way between the way that we coached. So, like, he would coach him, and then I would step in and coach him. And because we had such a natural chemistry working together, there was nothing to get in the way of that process. And I think that really made for a special staff. And it wasn't just us. There were other good coaches on that staff as well. But, I think ego between us didn't get in the way. And I think that's, if you can find that on your staff, you need to really try to hold on to that person. And, we have somebody on our staff now that it's very similar. And, I think that's a really special trait that coaches can have together. And ultimately, it best serves the players.
Yeah, absolutely. No, so we've gone from coach to player, coach, assistant coach, and now it's coach against coach, right? And competing. So let's talk about that a little bit, if you don't mind. So obviously it's changed. You're in the same conference, which is even more challenging and not challenging, but, different. But this story happens a lot, by the way, and not just here, but everywhere. So how did it feel like, Thiago, the first time you were going to go up and play against Mount Vernon Nazarene? And how did you prepare for that week? So I'll ask you first, then I'll ask Zach.
To be honest, I was, preparing as was
Normal game.
as a normal game, and I think, but what was stuck out to me was just how my players kind of, because a lot of them knew Zach, and still was, coached by him, and they have a huge respect for him, and so watching their reaction, because it's almost they could see some of similar elements that he was just part of my style of coaching. It was also a good blend of, Zach had a lot of ideas and things that we implemented when we coached together, and so a lot of those guys, just watching their reaction, because our first time we traveled to Mount Vernon to play, and so just seeing their reaction a little bit that's what kind of stood out to me in that process.
Yeah, no, it's good. Yeah. The first time you went there, if I remember. So I'll turn it to Zach. So Zach, obviously now, so maybe a little, I'll just say this. Anybody that I've ever coached against that were like I considered a really good friend, it like always put my stomach in knots, when I was coach, like, against or whatever. Our two teams were competing against each other. Similar feeling, maybe leading up to that week?
Yeah, I mean, the first time Bethel came to Mount Vernon, I had a relationship with both teams. And so it's a really weird feeling. I knew a lot of the guys from Bethel. Yeah, I gotten close with, the MVNU team. And so there's a lot of mixed emotions, I think, as we approach that game. It was also MVNU senior day. And so it was just like a lot going on emotionally. And so it was difficult in that way. But, I think Thiago's right that, like it was the players were coming up and shaking my hand from the opposing team before the game. And there's really not much that you can do to prepare for something like that. But, our relationship, I think the best way to describe it is an image. And so we played Bethel last year at Bethel, and it was a really closely contested game, a game that MVNU ended up winning, but Bethel played very, very well and had numerous chances to win too. And, we scored a golden goal, and I went out to celebrate with the guys, but then there was something in my brain that caught me, and I turned right around and went to shake Thiago's hand. Yeah. I think that's the best way. Like, you're so excited for your team, but then there's such a level of respect that you don't want to celebrate on the field with somebody you respect like that. And so I was running out, and then I did a 180 and went back and shook Thiago's hand and kind of caught myself. And that's probably the best way to describe the emotional feeling that you get when you compete against somebody that, you've played for and coached with.
Yeah, no, thank you. We got Rob, who's luckily for us, he's one of our loyal attendees on this match day series. He has a question. So curious, Zach, what about Thiago made the environment better when he came in as a new coach? So let's go back to a little bit when you were a player and a coach. So
yeah, I think I'll just talk about Thiago's qualities, rather than comment on previous coach and things like that. But, we had a really talented team. And I think Thiago was extremely wise to know that when he came in. He knew the sort of talent we had. And I think the feeling that you got around him was one of confidence, but was really one of, respect, just because of the way that he handled himself and how relational he was in terms of getting to know the players, but then respecting our ideas and not thinking that he needed to come in and change everything right away. There were some changes in the way that we played, but it always felt like the players had a say. And it felt like we knew Thiago well enough to respect where he was coming from if he wanted to make some sort of change. I think it was a new energy. I think that's always, you see that with a lot of programs. Somebody comes in, it's just like an immediate jolt of energy that can get you a couple wins. But what was incredible about Thiago's impact is that it was sustainable. We didn't lose the whole season until the NAI national tournament. And so it wasn't just a fluke, you win 4 games to start the season because of jolt of energy. It was okay. Thiago knows the game, but then he also really cares about his players. And man, I don't know if there's a better combo, for a head coach. I think it's a combination of all those things.
Yeah, no, very good. So I'll ask one more of Rob's question. What were maybe 2 or 3 key points that Thiago made on the first meeting that kind of set the tone for you as a player, if you remember?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty vague. It's been a while, but I think this this really does speak to Thiago's character and just his presence as a coach. He's a coach that teaches really complex principles, but does it really simply, almost like without players noticing what's taking place. Yeah. And I think that's a really incredible trait that he has that I don't personally have as a coach. If I want players to really understand what I'm trying to teach, I have to be extremely detail oriented because of the way that I coach. And it's a coaching style thing. I think that's how Thiago was, and even in a meeting environment, like it's not as if he would say something that would be momentous, but he just made us feel like we could be great. And I don't know that it's 1, 2, or 3 key points. There were, and he did a good job. I remember before big games, putting together like some video things to get us motivated, and getting us to rally around, whatever it was. And he would always, I think, what he did really well also was connect the players with people that he knew, and it just felt like this family experience that I'm trying to replicate in Mount Vernon. And I think that's all of those things go to say that we felt comfortable around him. And it's not really as much what he said, but it's how he made us feel as players.
Yeah. So a question it's really good. Yeah. And Thiago is, and I know Thiago for quite a while too. And he just has this calming presence, but yet, that there's, a passion behind it. He's not like aloof. He's just very calm and very poised, very much like I watched a clip the other day with Brad Stevens when he coached Butler, and Butler scored a last-second shot, and actually they traveled, and then they got the ball back, and then they scored a last-second shot. But his reaction between the traveling and then to the winning shot were the same, the exact same. Nothing changed. And that's what I kind of envision Thiago as. Every time I see him, he's very calm, very poised, very polite, very courteous, and just gracious. So basically, Scott on the chat has, what is harder to gain approval from your new team, your character or your soccer IQ? So maybe this is a question for both, because both of you kind of experienced it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I can start and let Zach. I mean, I think I would say the character. You need both. I think as a coach, especially the higher level you go, and when you have a high talented team at the college level, semi-pro, certainly at the professional level. But I think the soccer IQ is sometimes they can get you short wins, but the character is what really sustains you over a long time, and actually brings the greater fulfillment in coaching that I think both Zach and I have had the privilege to experience in many different ways. And, I see him with his family and, and I think with these players and, now former players or assistant coaches stepping into a head coaching position, so it's definitely the character side, the relational side, because, the soccer IQ requires a level of trust and a buy-in to your game plan, your ideas, your tactical, ideas, but you have to connect and care before you demand and correct.
Connect and care, wonderful way of putting it. Yeah. So Zach, anything? Kind of the same thing, right? Because you came in new, right? Just right. So because the previous coach moved on.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is something that all young coaches go through. Taking over a program, and I just think that there's a lot of ways I can go with this. One thing that I want to get across to young coaches who might be thinking about doing the same thing is you have to make sure that you don't try to be somebody else in your new environment. Yeah. I think that, that's really a mistake that I made. I respected Thiago so much that I tried to take a lot of the same ideas and move them, a state to the east, when in reality, like the institution is different. The players at the time were different. The history of the program, even like the way that they've played in the past, they were good coaches at MVNU in the past that played a certain way, maybe for a reason. That when you're young and a little bit naive, I think you think that you can it's been successful at Bethel, which is where I played and coached. It's going to be successful at Mount Vernon. I think there's so much more that goes into that, including like the way that you teach. And so like if I try to teach like Thiago and he's so simple, and yet the complex principles come across and it shows in the game. That's not the way that I teach. And if I try to do that, I'm not preparing the players to the best of my ability. Right. And so those are things that you can really only learn the easy way or the hard way. I had to learn it the hard way. What I hope is that some young coaches might hear this and say, okay, rather than, just focus on my influences, focus on, what kind of coach do I want to be right now where I'm at
Right.
whatever college or whatever club now. And I think there's some dynamic factors that you need to consider to serve the players best, which is what we're both trying to do.
No, yeah, good. Very good insight there too. I mean, it just, at the end of the day, right? I mean, first off, experience is a great teacher, and I'm sure Thiago, right? You're a little different from when you coach Zach today. I mean, not much, but
Right.
I'm sure you are. And like what Zach's already said, he was someone else, and now he's starting to kind of get into his what he wants to be. And and both of you you didn't really say the word, but I think they're transformational coaches, right? You're not about the transaction. You're not about, obviously the outcome matters, right? Because we play to win, right? We compete, but at the end of the day, it's about transforming people, and making sure that as a coach, right, that you develop people to where when they're at, in their casket, that the pastor doesn't have to lie about them, and you were part of making them a really good person. So,
Right.
But no, we've gone over time. Just what he just left, but I think he's going to get my granddaughter. But anyway, so Thiago, anything to end with here, and then I'll leave it up to Zach.
Was that Vince?
Oh, I'll leave it up. I'll give you a last thought, and then I'll end with Zach, and then we'll end.
Yeah, no, I think that's thanks for having us. And what you just said there is, for us coaches and working with sports, it's knowing our purpose.
Yeah.
And knowing our, having an identity where it's clear and our values carries a huge weight. And that's something that I would say above anything else, the X's and O's, it will be, truly knowing who you are and your values will translate to winning, having a real value. And that's what he talked about, having a transformational. And one thing that I would say is don't be afraid to give your time where you're not necessarily gaining on the community. Zach and I built a great relationship, but there were many weekends, many places where we had futsal sessions that became our coaching incubator, where we learned how to coach, but 4 sessions back to back. And Vince, you can relate to this well. And so I think that I think coaches should do a lot more of that. I mean, they dream of the big stage, but I think it's how willing are you to do, to give of your time for the better of other people.
Yep. No, thank you. Excellent. Zach, I'll give you the last word.
Sure. I mean, I think Thiago summed it up really well. I mean, he's eloquent in the way that he finished that. But I will say that, being a transformational coach, I think that really stems from, your influences, who's raised you. And I know that I do want to say on this call, you've been so important to me, Dad, and in terms of just the way that I relate to players and all the things that you've done, and me just kind of on your coattails, when I was a kid, and just always on the field with you, watching you have fun with, 55-year-olds, but then later on, coach a high school team and motivate them the way that you do. I just think it's a rare blend. And so, transformational coaches at some point have been transformed themselves. And I have 2 people on this call that have done that for me. And I want to make sure you both know that. But, what's instilled most in me is, and I'm still learning, but, for you to call me a transformational coach, I think is something that, I've grown into and something that I've learned. I haven't always been like that. I think we all struggle with that, young coaches. And I can say right now that, I think I'm thinking about, 10 or 15 of my players right now and their well-being. And I just know that, if you treat coaching the right way and you're player focused, I think it can change your life too for a positive way. And so I just appreciate you having me, Dad, and all that you've done for me.
No, thank you. Love you very much. Yeah, I mean, when you two play, I mean, I'm a nervous wreck, right? When I watch Zach's teams play against someone else, right? And every now and again he calls me and says, "What do you think?" And I'll give him my 2 cents. But when you two play, I'm not a nervous wreck, because for me it's a win-win, right? I mean, I played for Bethel. You're such an endearing part of his life, and for me, the perfect result's a tie, a draw. That's for me. But yeah, I mean, I just want to let you know that's the way I feel when I watch you two guys play against each other, or you teams compete against each other. So thank you all so much. Can I see my granddaughter one last time, or is she in bed?
She's Becca just got home and grabbed her. So hold on. You can see her one more time. There you go.
Can I see her?
Yeah.
Hey,
there she is.
She wants nothing to do with me right now.
So bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Perfect way to end it.
Yep.
Thank you all so much for being on the line.
Thanks,
and
Vince.
for coming on part 2. By the way, lots of really good comments in the chat box. One person said, thank you so much for this is an interesting story. I'm glad you did part 2 to dive into a little bit deeper into the relationship. So thank you so much. And well, let's hope we can get on the field soon. So
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks,
See you guys.
Thanks, Zach.
Bye.
Bye.